As the entire world has heard by now, Aaron Bushnell is the man who stood before the Israeli embassy a few days ago, uttered his last words, "Free Palestine," and self-immolated. It's hard not to think of the Buddhist monks who did the same thing during the Vietnam War to protest what was going on, and the support they received from liberals for doing so, for having the courage to do what they did in order to protest the Vietnam War, and how much those same liberals have suddenly changed now that their support is for the genocidal war machine of Israel. All of a sudden, it's become okay for people to mock that, who literally supported the same thing. It's not the mocking, it's the double standard. It's when you say that doing that is brave when one person does it, but not when another person does it. It's the double standard that's important here. Because suddenly, it's okay for Israel to carry out a genocide. And that is exactly what it's doing. And watching the mental gymnastics of liberals who know better, who know that this is a genocide and there's no excuse for it, but simply cannot, absolutely cannot, in any way, shape, or form, simply accept everything that's been done to them for the last 75 years. Been done to the Palestinians. Yeah, but don't be violent. And will literally ignore the fact that violence is already being used on them for 75 years. And that asking Israel to stop committing genocide hasn't worked. Now I wonder, would those same people have told everyone in the Warsaw ghettos, in all the ghettos that Jews were forced to live in, that every time they had armed uprisings, just stop being violent, you're just making things worse for yourself? Would that have been your defense of the Nazis? Because it kind of actually is the exact same thing. It's your double standard, and you're only doing this because they're Arabs. People sometimes ask, how could the Holocaust have just happened? How could people just be that way and not do something about it? Right now, what you are doing is exactly how it happened. Conservatives are at least honest. They outright just support murdering off the Palestinian population. They're honest. They're inhuman. Words chosen carefully because of YouTube's terms of service. Apparently, it's okay to be a member of the Israeli government and call for genocide. But if you say something mean about the people calling for genocide, and then all of a sudden you get removed. So fuck you, YouTube. It has been disgusting watching the mainstream media slander Aaron Bushnell. When I say slander, it's because they're saying things that aren't true. He was not mentally ill at all. There was no indication that he was at all. They're outright lying and trying to look for an excuse for what he did. Isn't it weird how they suddenly, mass shootings are mental illness, but as soon as somebody does something that's altruistic, all of a sudden it's mental illness. As someone who has a rather deep understanding of mental illness, not just from, personal experience, but from an academic position as well, you're disgusting. You're frauds. You're liars. and you do nothing but hurt people who do have mental illness. The man was making a statement and was willing to die to make a statement. You know, maybe that's something someone like you and the kind of person that would support the genocidal monstrosity that is Israel wouldn't understand. Maybe you're not capable of it. Maybe you're not capable of understanding what it means to be so moved by a people being systematically murdered that you would take an extreme measure to send a message to the world. Because I'll tell you this, you'd be screaming and crying bloody murder if he had gone over and helped Hamas fight Israel. And when he chose not to hurt anyone else, but only hurt himself, he screamed mental illness. It's never fucking good enough for you, is it? Never. Stop hurting other people, okay? You didn't hurt anybody else. So now you're going to defame him. You're going to slander him by calling him mentally ill. Now, why don't you just say what you really mean? And that is just stop complaining about the Palestinians being systematically murdered. Or what's the matter? You can't fire the public the way you fired Mehdi Hassan for refusing to support Israel's genocide on MSNBC? Or the other two Muslims from the same network whose names evade me at the moment? That's about the gist of it, isn't it? To all you American patriots out there, what about that tweet where Mossad was mocking that soldier, one of your soldiers? I bet you just kind of looked the other way on that one, didn't you? If somebody just merely says, I don't think we should be in this war, then you turn around and you call them the biggest traitor that's ever existed. They hate this country and part of the secret Islamo-Commie Nazi conspiracy to take over America. But when somebody actually insults troops, one of your allies, mocks him for dying, for standing up for what he believes in, which, by the way, I think that's what you think is so glorious about yourself. You got nothing to say. You look the other way. Pretend it never happened. Because you're a two-faced fucking coward. My criticism is not that Mossad mocked him. I'd expect that. Because I think that Mossad's done a lot worse than mock somebody. That's not what offends me. What offends me is your your two-faced nature, the utter hypocrisy of you shooting your mouth off at every person who says don't kill people at all, and you call them traitors. When somebody does something, insults one of your own that says the same thing, like insults and mocks, does it without mocking and insulting, they're a traitor. But when one of your own says it and they get insulted and whatnot by your own ally, you don't have a thing to say. Or maybe you just know your place. The funny part is, this is going to have some effect. The mainstream media isn't paying too much attention to it, but they are paying some attention to it. It's kind of hard to ignore something like that. And it definitely needs to be said, and it needs to be reminded that, and remember that this isn't going away. And one last thing. If you think it's shocking that a soldier set himself on fire and died in protest, think of the 30,000 people who have already been murdered by Israel simply for existing. Or does that not bother your pathetic excuse for a conscience?
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.